Welcome to Highlighted, a Life Church Midweek Podcast. Here, we're on a journey to look for ways to make our sermons more practical in our everyday lives, and we want to inspire you to live out your faith every single day, not just on Sundays. In each episode, we highlight our sermons and our ministries to see how God is working in our church and through our community. And as always, I'm sitting here with the greatest pastor in the world.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
And yeah, we're going to keep talking about the woman at the well. So if you missed last week, go check out last week. But
we're going to add to it.
We're about halfway through the story now.
Yeah.
It's
a good story. It's one that we talk about a lot, but we're breaking down in a little bit of a different way. It kind of aligns with our core values. She's looking for a lot of stuff that Jesus is going to kind of bring to her, and so the thirst for fulfillment, and then the thirst for belonging. And I think we can all relate to this idea of wanting to belong to something, wanting to feel like we belong. And she comes to the well kind of isolated, lonely, feeling empty, and she spent her life trying to fit in, and yet she doesn't. And there's this lie that she's begun to kind of pick up on and live out. And I think we find ourselves a lot of times trying to live that lie, this lie that we should fit in, we should look like everyone else, we should act like everyone else, we should be like everyone else. And it's the crazy thing is that, like, we know better, right? We know that that's not the case. We even make fun of things like trying to keep up with the whatever the name of the week is that goes along with, but keeping up with people. We know that when we see things on Facebook and Instagram and on social media that it isn't, that some of this stuff is staged. This stuff isn't exactly what it's supposed to look like. And yet we still find ourselves working to try to fit into this mold, in this box. And Jesus comes to this lady. He breaks the mold completely wide open, right? And because he's not going to fit in, right? He's doing things he's not supposed to be doing by culture standards and by the standards of fitting in. And yet he comes here and he does this thing and he shows this lady the kind of this different way of doing things and this different way of, and then he just reads her mail. And he begins to present her with the truth of belonging, that she is both fully known and fully loved. And what an incredible thought that we would fully love someone or something when we fully know them. You know, the truth is, I don't fully know you. I know you really well, but I don't know every thought that comes across your mind. I don't know every action you've ever done. I don't know the things that bother you sometimes, or the things that you do that you wouldn't want anybody else to know about. And yet, I love you, right? But if I knew those things, would that change how I feel about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you phrased it on Sunday. You said we have a longing to belong. Right. We have a longing for belonging.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a tongue twister there, but it's true. And you see it in every circle of life, whether, you're a parent and you're comparing yourselves to other parents, or whether you are, a student, and even just comparing your grades to your classmates, or whatever it might look like. And we have a tendency, in our minds work in a certain way for whatever reason, that we want to compare ourselves to other people and we want to fit in, right? And, we don't want to be the one student in the class that got an F when everyone else was like, oh, that was easy, I got an A.
It's even difficult to be the other way around. Like you mentioned that, and it's funny because we struggle with being the only one to get an A in a class full of Fs also. Like
I'm the reason there's not a curve.
Right,
like,
yeah,
I can't,
exactly.
no one can't find out. Like,
right.
like my mom cannot put this on the fridge. It is too important to me to
I was
keep this
never
a
like
secret.
that. I wanted the A. But, but you're right. Because of that longing to belong, we want to be like everyone else. We don't really want to stand out. Even in the moments where we're trying to stand out, we don't want to stand out so much. And so,
or stand out alone, at least. Like I can stand out, but I need one or two other people with me also standing out. But alone, that's another story,
right?
And I think that's the beauty of Sunday is we're talking about the woman at the well, but we're also talking about community, right? And the whole idea, the whole overarching premise of Sunday was like, we have a Savior that sees us and knows us and loves us no matter what. And because of that, we get to share in community with each other. And we might not have a whole lot in common, but we have our Savior in common. Right. And that is enough to build a community on. And just the beauty of Sunday, knowing that there is this lady that didn't belong. Jesus didn't belong there with her even. Right. Like, she didn't deserve that. We don't deserve it. But to know that, Jesus went out of his way to go talk to her. And he, like you said Sunday, he broke a lot of rules to go do this, not just because he was a rabbi, but he just broke cultural rules in general. And knowing that he stepped out of his way to go do that.
Yeah.
And she found community because of it. And like, I just can only imagine what does Jesus want to do here and now with us? Like if he can do that then and there in Samaria of all places,
right?
Like what is he going to do in Roanoke, Virginia if we allow him?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things where we read through the story so quickly that we lose sight of the fact that this story is about so much more than just her coming to know Christ. Like that's a big deal, don't get me wrong. Like her beginning that relationship, getting that living water that Jesus talks about, but it's so much deeper than that. There's a lot happening in her life because she has a longing, right? She has all these longings. She legitimately has a thirst for belonging. She wants to belong, but she's bought into the lie, and that she's not going to fit in. That fitting in is and she's just never going to fit that mold anymore, right? She's had all these husbands. She's lived this specific life that we're kind of only given this much detail about, but it's enough to know that there's some things wrong. And the truth of the matter is Jesus shows her a form of community that she probably hasn't seen in years, in literally just sitting down and having a conversation with her.
And it's crazy too, because she's longing for community, because the things he calls out, like if I was her, I would just walk away.
Right.
I'll get my water another time. This man knows too much. This Jewish man, this rabbi, he's not even supposed to talk to me. And then he just laid out my whole life in front of me. Like, I don't want to keep talking to him because I don't want him to share even more. Like, what else is he going to share? Yeah. What else does he know? But like, clearly there is that drive within her that says, okay, like I might not like what you're saying, but I'm going to keep talking.
Yeah.
And even then, after he turns that on her, she turns the conversation, but she doesn't leave the conversation.
Right.
She might change the subject, but she's still longing for the conversation with Jesus.
Yeah. She's so quick. And we don't give her enough credit because Jesus calls her out, and she does. She flips the script on him. She tries to change the subject, and Jesus just keeps the course, right? But also he understands her longing for community, understands her longing to connect. And so he connects with her in a way that only Jesus can, right? In a way that only Jesus could, and call her out. And I think about the people that, if I were to call you out about something right now, whether this was going or not, you'd be like, maybe walk away, maybe be upset, maybe you would receive it some just because we're friends. But she didn't understand friendship. She didn't have friends. She didn't have somebody to have that. So Jesus becomes this community. So all of that to say, like, we live in a culture that has bought into this lie that we have to fit in. And it's left people lonely, right? It's left them in this state of emptiness and isolated from each other, to where we have more virtual friends than we have real friends. We have, I don't know why this came up the other day, but I was thinking about the amount of phone numbers I used to have memorized. Like, you're too young for that.
I had my parents' numbers memorized, my mom, my dad, and that was about it.
That was about it. At one point, probably my teenage years, right, and I'm showing my age a little bit here, I probably had 30, 35 numbers memorized and could just dial them.
30 numbers in my phone.
I don't believe that for a second. But yeah, I could go to the kitchen or the living room, wherever the phone was, because it was corded and you had to stay near it unless you had a really long cord or a cordless phone, if you were lucky enough to have one of those. And you would just dial the number. And I remember, like, I would call my friends one after another, and I memorized the numbers. I could call my grandparents. I memorized their number, aunts and uncles, cousins. It was just one of those things. But we were connected in a different way. And I'm not saying what we have today is bad, because I think it allows for things we could never do before. We prayed for a young lady, a child on Sunday, who was in the hospital, and her mom could not be there with her. Her dad was there, but her mom couldn't be because her mom was sick, and they wouldn't let her come into the hospital because of the sickness that it was. And we live in a day and age where she can FaceTime with her daughter and be present for things that she could never have been present for. So don't hear me when I say, like, I'm not dogging on technology and all the things that we do. Social media has a place and all these things, but it can't take the place of community. right? It's not community. It's not in the way that we long for it. And this lady is a perfect example of that, because she's at the well alone. There's no community. She's got nobody to talk to, nobody to really even talk through things with. And she's, like you said, so willing to talk that she's willing to let Jesus just call her out. Most people are not like that. Most people are not that ready for that type of community. So, but she is, and it's incredible, because what it yields is she gets reconnected and rekindled with her community in a way that she could have never saw coming when she got up and left the house that day. And so we've talked about it, we've read through it, but we haven't really engaged it. We will this week. She comes to the well with a water pot ready to get water out. And when Jesus does this and she has this communication, she leaves it and she goes, right? And so she begins to see and understand Jesus is showing her, first, where her priorities need to be in him, right? And secondly, that community is foundational. And so if you've bought into the lie of fitting in, right, there's a truth to belonging, and the truth to belonging is that you are fully known. Every detail of your life fully known to Jesus, and yet he fully loves you, and he's called us as the church and your brothers and sisters in Christ to do the same thing. And so it becomes this thing for us where we have to include people in our lives. We've got to invite them into our lives, invite them not just to know Jesus, because that's important and the important thing, but also to know us, and so that we can get to know them, to get to know the things that maybe we struggle with about ourselves, and the things that we struggle with in our own lives, so that we can uphold each other. Community is not just about having somebody to talk to. Jesus is also holding this woman accountable for her actions. And she needed somebody to look at her and say, you're missing it.
Yeah, and the cool thing is we see Jesus do it in a really loving, approachable way, especially for a stranger.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not like this is her best friend saying, "Oh, hey, like, I haven't seen you at the well recently, and, I heard you got another divorce, and now you're living with Henry down the street."
Sorry if your name
is Henry. But Jesus lays it all out there for her.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shame her for it. He doesn't say, like, "Hey, get your life together and then come back and see me." He says, "Hey, this is this.
Yeah.
And I know all this about you, but I have something to offer you."
Yeah.
It's not going to leave you thirsty anymore. It's not going to leave you unsatisfied. What I have for you is going to satisfy every desire that you have, and every need that you might have. It's going to be met.
Yeah.
And he gives it to her freely. And so much so that we've been talking about the culture shock of this lady to go from having nobody to turning around and telling everybody that hates her, everybody that has pushed her out of their life, and going and saying, "Hey, the Messiah is here.
Yeah.
Like, you got to come meet this guy. He told me everything about my life, and it's not like you guys. Like, I know you guys gossip.
Right.
I know you guys talk about me all the time. That's why I don't go to the well at 6 p.m. anymore when the sun's setting. I go real in the hot time of the day, and bad idea because I got sunburned last week. But this man was there, and you have to come meet him."
Yeah.
And my mind can't fathom the complete 180 turnaround that has to go on in her life to do, like, here's everyone that's ever said anything bad about me that I avoid. I purposely do things harder and make things harder in my life to avoid these people.
That's good. Yeah.
But I'm going to turn around, and the very first people to push me out of their lives, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to invite them to meet this man. And I just, man, like, my human mind can't comprehend that.
But it's a mirror of what Jesus did, right?
But it's a mirror of grace.
Right.
And knowing that, like, that same grace that he extended that woman is the same grace he extends to us. And it's the beauty of the local church, really. And not just this house, but all of the other churches here. Yeah. And, I think all the time, and I've had people ask me, like, is it hard? Because there's a lot of churches in Roanoke.
Sure.
There's a lot of churches in Roanoke.
A lot just on our road.
Even, just down Peters Creek. And even on I have an 8-minute drive to church on Sunday. It's 10 minutes during the week because there's more traffic. Sure. But on a Sunday morning, early in the morning when I'm coming, it's 7-8 minutes. Easy. Don't have to wait on the lights. Don't have to wait on traffic. And I still drive by like 6 or 7 churches that aren't this church on the way here. And it's crazy. And knowing that, like, Jesus has a place.
Yeah.
in all of these churches. And one is not greater than the other because of their theology or because of their pastor or their worship team or the songs they sing or the sermon series they're in or who might go there or how much they might give them missions. And like all of these are cool things and good things and might help them reach a different people group than we might reach. But knowing that, like there are hundreds of Bible-believing churches in our city that need community just as much as we long for it too. And we can't be selfish with it. And also, if we want to see our dream of this city getting reached, we can't do it alone. Yeah. So knowing that, like, we're not in competition with other believers, we're not in competition with other churches or other organizations, that even if they might believe something a little bit different than us, like we all want the same thing at the end of the day. Yeah. And it's for people to know Jesus. And knowing that, he can use us where we are in our workplaces and our schools. I mean, even here, right? Yeah. Where, we see each other every day for the most part, but there's so many families that walk through this place that don't have a home church. Yeah. Or maybe they do, but they haven't been in a year, 2 years. Maybe they know who Jesus is, but they don't know him. And we have the opportunity the same way that Jesus got to approach this woman at the well. And no matter where you're at, and again, I said this, I think last week or the week before on Highlight, like you don't have to be a biblical scholar. Right. To lay it all out for someone. You just have to make Jesus your priority, and community your foundation, and invitation your instinct, and transformation your heart. I'm sorry, that's the whole series. So I guess you don't have to come the next 2 weeks.
Don't listen to him. Yes, you do.
Don't listen to me. Yeah. But I think just like we've been screaming all last year, and the same thing we've been screaming for the first 2 weeks of this year, is that all of this is interconnected. Yeah. And all of it matters, and it's all simple. Yeah. And our response just has to be, yes, Lord. Yeah. Absolutely. Right? And he's asking us to go to war. And we don't, it's like David, we don't have to put on the armor. We don't have to carry the heavy sword and the things we're not comfortable with. We just have to pick up the stones and say, yes, Lord, I'm going to be obedient, and I'm going to trust that you're going to slay the giant. Right. Even if the weapon I have isn't the best for slaying giants, even if I'm going to get laughed at or mocked or whatever, knowing that we have a Savior and he calls us friend. Yeah. Each and every one of us, man, that's enough to connect us to the farthest person from us. Yeah. And knowing that we can build true community, not because of our shared interests, not because of our demographic, not because of where we live or where your kids go to school or who you are or any other thing, but other than Jesus. We share that in common, and that's enough. Yeah. So this is another super practical Sunday where it's just like, okay, Lord, like I have to get involved. Yeah. I have to. And I know what you're thinking, like, oh, you guys talk about getting involved. Well, I donated gifts for Christmas Fest. I was involved with that, and I didn't have to talk to anyone or see anyone. I just clicked the link on Amazon and sent them to the church. I didn't have to tell anyone I did it. But true community, that face-to-face interaction with people is special. It's different. And like you said, like the internet's not a bad thing. It's a great tool. It's a great resource. But knowing that we can have real interactions with real people that are going through just as much or more than we are on a day-to-day basis, man, like it grounds us, and we're all human at the end of the day. We all make mistakes. Sin entered the world, and we can't do anything about it on this side of eternity. But what we can do is we can walk with Jesus. Yeah. And we can be obedient to him, and wherever he's calling us, we can say yes.
It's good. Community starts with us being in communion with him. And it continues as we bring other people into that community with us. And so this is, like you said, practical week. All 4 of these messages are practical. And this upcoming week is no different. But it does lead us into like some other things that we're doing. So like we've got House of Prayer every Wednesday this month, and that is an incredible time of community because we're praying for each other, with each other, and really guiding that time. It's a very special moment. Last night, Wednesday night, was incredible. It was just a great night, and so I just want to encourage you, like come try to be a part of the community as much as you can. In reference to this, God has placed this community in your life for a reason. And so allow it to impact it, just like this one
and
did.
Just a couple practical steps, right? Come to service on Sundays, right? Get here a little early. Yeah. Stay around a little late. Talk to someone you don't normally talk to. And it's scary sometimes to be like, hey,
Sure.
I don't know you. You might think I'm weird for this, but just as much as you're longing for community, that person might be longing for.
And there's a lot
too.
of new faces around.
Yeah, absolutely. And then not just Sundays, but like you said, House of Prayer on Wednesdays, or when we do our regular midweek discipleship classes, like that doesn't stop when House of Prayer stops.
Right.
And knowing there's so many avenues to experience community with one another, and knowing that sometimes it's going to stretch us a little, but that's okay. And a third and final really practical way is serving on a team. Yeah. And one of my favorite parts about leading the worship and creative team isn't that I like that kind of stuff. Like, that's fun, and I love what I do day to day, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But the people that I get to serve with and the stories that I hear, man, it's special. And knowing that we're the Life family,
right?
But in that family, I have my own little family, and we're just a little bit closer. And no shame if you don't serve on one of my teams. I love you. And no shame, but if you serve on the worship or creative team, you might just be in my little book of favorites. I have a little black book with people.
That's what
off.
was on your desk and why my name wasn't.
Yeah, you were crossed off. No, but in reality, there's so many awesome ways to serve here, and no matter what you are able to do, you can learn a whole lot serving. And
right.
I've learned a whole lot serving in avenues that I didn't expect to serve in. Sure. And especially we do Christmas Fest, and it's no secret. We've been talking about it for the last couple months, and now we're taking a break. We have 11 months to plan now, so we're still talking about it. But Christmas Fest, man, it's such a fun time because it stretches me because I get to serve in a whole new way that I normally don't get to serve in. So, man, join a serve team, get involved, get plugged in, go get lunch with someone after church, or if that's too much, go get coffee with someone, or ask someone just, hey, pastor, how was your week? Right? Like, it's simple. And sometimes we don't think about these little things, right? But it's real simple to start a conversation with someone and to start to build the foundations of a relationship and have that true community. But as always, we love you, and we can't wait to see you again soon.